Academy. This video regarding API primitives related question and answers. Question: what is the Kubernetes API? The core components control plane is the API server. The API server exposes on HTTP API that lets end users, different parts of your cluster and external components communicate with one another. The Kubernetes API lets you query and manipulate the state of API objects in Kubernetes. For example, parts, namespaces, events, config maps, etc. Most operations can be performed through the kubectl command line interface or other command line tools such as Kubedium, which is use the API. However, you can also access the API directly using REST calls. Next question: what are Kubernetes objects? Kubernetes objects are persistent entities in the Kubernetes system. Kubernetes uses these entities to represent the state of your cluster. Specifically, they can describe what containerized applications are running and on which nodes, the resources available to those applications, the policies around how those applications behave, such as restart policies, upgrades, and fault tolerance. A Kubernetes object is a record of intent. Once you create the object, the Kubernetes system will constantly work to ensure that object exists. By creating an object, you are effectively telling the Kubernetes system what you want your cluster's workload to look like. This is your cluster's desired state. To work with Kubernetes objects, whether to create, modify, or delete them, you will need to use the Kubernetes API. Next question: tell me the difference between Kubernetes object spec and status. Almost every Kubernetes object includes two nested object fields that govern the object's configuration: the object spec and object status. For objects that have a spec, you have to set this when you create the object, providing a description of the characteristics you want to resource to have its desired state. The status describes the current state of the object supplied and updated by the Kubernetes system and its components. The Kubernetes control plane continually and actively manages every object's actual state to match the desired state you supplied. That's it. Describe a Kubernetes object. When you create an object in Kubernetes, you must provide the object spec that describes its desired state as well as the same basic information about the object, such as a name. When you use the Kubernetes API to create the object either directly or via a kubectl, that API request must include that information as JSON in the request body. Most often you provide the information to kubectl in a .yaml file. Kubectl converts the information to JSON when making the API request. Now we are going to learning YAML file in detail. .yaml file that shows the required fields and object spec for a Kubernetes development. Now looking on the screen, the simple script. This is YAML script. There are mainly 4 sections: is there API version, kind, metadata, and spec sections. Under the spec section, number of subsections is there. Mainly first one, API version. API version I will explain you. I will give you notes also here. API version, Kubernetes API version, which indicates the path to ensure the API presents a clear, consistent view of system resources and behavior. This is providing by Kubernetes. Next one, kind. API version, kind, metadata, spec, these are, we can say, keys. Beside that, API version :space apps / v1, that is value. API version is key, apps / v1 value, kind key, deployment value. In that way we can say. And now kind. What is kind? Represents the kind of object you want to create. This is a required field. Examples of kinds of objects include pod, deployment, job, demand set, replica set, replication controller, and many more. Next one, metadata. What is metadata? Here you can see metadata, name, nginx, deployment. Next one, spec section. Now we can see metadata. Metadata, data that helps uniquely identify the object, including a name string, unique ID, and optional namespace. Next one, spec section. It describes your desired state for the object and the characteristics you want the object to have. The format of the object spec is different for every object and contains nested fields specified to that object. What are nested fields? Under this, a lot of subfields is there. Under this spec section, selectors is there, match labels, app, replicas, template section is separate. Under this spec section, under this template section, metadata came, labels again came, app, same name we should provide, which is you provided in the selectors, same name we provided in template section also. And spec, container information, this is container spec. We will provide container information. Next, spec section, container spec specifies the pods, container image, volumes, and exposed ports for the container. Last one, but not here. Now we should provide the status here from the starting of this ML script. The state describes the actual state of the object and is supplied and updated by the Kubernetes system. At any given time, the Kubernetes control plane actively manages an object's actual state to match the desired state you supplied. That's about the today's question and answers. This ML script is very simple and you can understand very easily. You should know what are the indentations and how it gives. These are all are green colors are keys and black colors are values, related values. And kind contains always object name. And metadata, everywhere metadata is there in Linux and other any software tools or any administration. Metadata also is there, same like in YAML script also metadata is here. We will give the metadata name, any name we can give here. Then spec section, this spec section is very important for the ML script. Under this spec section only we will provide everything. That's it. I provided everything in the notes here, what I said here. Please watch the video and write it down and read like a story, then tell like a novel. Thanks for watching.